Mary Louise Cook here. Welcome on into another episode of FCS All-In. As always, today's episode will feature the conferences around the FCS as well as national correspondent Sam Herder of Hero Sports and Craig Haley of Stats Perform. With Week 4 bringing us the much anticipated start to conference play, it's time to go all in.
Another week and another nationally highlighted defensive performance. Holy Cross's Jacob Dobbs had 13 tackles and 2 sacks at Yale on Saturday as the Crusaders held off the Bulldogs for the 2017 road win. Dobbs now ranks second in the FCS in tackles with 42. Hi, I'm Maria Travel Peace in the Patriot League studio for FCS All-In. Dobbs is second in the FCS because the national leader Ryan Greenhagen recorded 17 tackles for Fordham in Week 3, and that gives him a total of 76 through 3 games. Fordham remains on the road this week as it makes the short trek across Long Island to face Stony Brook. The Seawolves are 1-2 on the season with a win over Colgate in Week 2, and their losses have come against number 22 New Hampshire and Oregon last week, which is ranked number 3 in the FBS Top 25. Holy Cross will also have a tough challenge with a road contest at number 19 Monmouth. The Hawks are coming off a second straight victory after winning their Big South opener at Charleston Southern. The Crusaders picked up a big win as well, rallying back from a 14-0 deficit to win their second game of the season. Matthew Sluka, who was named the Patriot League Offensive Player of the Week for the second time this year, ran for a pair of touchdowns to put Holy Cross up 17-14. And with 48 seconds to go, Derek Ng kicked a 47-yard game-winning field goal, his second game winner against Yale in his career. Let's take a look at the rest of the Patriot League schedule in Week 4. Georgetown will look to bounce back against the Ivy with the road game at Columbia, while Lafayette will host Penn at 3:30 p.m. Lehigh and Colgate will open the Patriot League slate with their 1 p.m. kickoff on ESPN+. Colgate opened the season with a trio of strong non-conference opponents, and the Raiders, led by first-year head coach Stan DeCoste, will look to reset this weekend with a fresh start in Patriot League play.
So we knew coming into this season that our initial out-of-conference is going to be challenging. You know, we always schedule tough non-conference opponents, especially early on. You know, so that's something that we don't shy away from, and you know, we knew we'd get tested and they'd be battled. So, you know, keeping the team, you know, positive and confident throughout those first 3 games, you know, is really important going into obviously, you know, our next set of games, which are league games. But I learned that they're, you know, I think they're a true team. I mean, they fight for each other. You know, they have each other's back. You know, there were some tough games there, and they never gave up. You know, we asked them to battle through and fight through, you know, the challenging parts of the season, and they've done that. You know, they've done everything we asked them to. And there's also glimpses of, you know, we could be a really good football team. So it's a matter of having them see that and believe it and understand that, you know, it takes putting that together for 4 quarters to come out with a victory, especially when you play that level of competition early on. But, you know, I think the buy-in, their attitude, their effort, and then them playing for each other, you know, it's a really close team. So that's helped, you know, when it's easier to learn lessons when everyone sticks together. So that's been really the foundation of where we're at right now. So it's a matter of, you know, getting over that hump and you know, having them feel that success and taking off from there.
Lehigh has won 7 of the last 10 meetings against Colgate, and all of the matchups in the last 11 years have featured plenty of scoring, as 6 of the games featured the winner scoring more than 40 points. If Week 4 features a similar offensive output, you can expect to see those highlights on social. Be sure to follow us at Patriot League TV, and we'll see you back here next week.
It was another strong week in CAA football as the league combined for a 5-1 record against non-conference foes to improve to 16-3 on the season. James Madison went on the road and defeated 9th-ranked Weber State 37-24 in a highly anticipated FCS showdown. New Hampshire and Rhode Island joined the Dukes at 3-0 as the Wildcats got past Lafayette, and the Rams downed in-state rival Brown to claim their 3rd straight Governor's Cup. William & Mary used another dominant defensive effort to beat Colgate, and MAINE handed MERRIMACK its first setback as Rich Carr blocked a pair of extra points that were returned for scores in a 31-26 victory. However, the most dramatic finish of the day came in the lone CAA contest. Nationally ranked teams Richmond and Villanova went back and forth all afternoon before quarterback Dan Smith guided the Wildcats to 21 points in the final 5 minutes to edge the Spiders 34-27. Looking ahead to Week 4, 5 of the 7 games on the slate feature CAA teams facing FBS opponents. Richmond meets Virginia Tech, New Hampshire takes on Pitt, MAINE heads to Northern Illinois, Towson travels cross-country to play San Diego State, and Villanova challenges 6th-ranked Penn State. While a CAA team has knocked off an FBS foe in 11 of the past 13 years, several CAA coaches know it takes a special effort to pull off the upset.
Every game we go into, our focus is to try to win the game. and let's go win. That's why you play the game. You know, right? Herman Edwards. You play the game to win the game. And that's always going to be what we're talking about, thinking about preparing to do. We're going to do what we can and go out there and hopefully, again, execute at a high level and see how it plays out.
You know, the challenges are, you know, you with the speed of a BCS going to Virginia Tech, you know, you got to defend the whole field. You know, you got to have the ability to get really good backs on the ground by swarming to the football. You got to be smart.
We've been there before. It's a great environment to play football in, a great stadium. Wish we were playing that team we played like 8-10 years ago, not this team we're playing right now. They're really fast. They're athletic. They are violent when they get to the football on defense.
Stony Brook is back at home to close out non-conference play against Fordham. The New York City matchup is a big one for bragging rights, according to Seawolves head coach Chuck Priori.
We've got a lot of city kids that play on our football team that know a lot of guys that play on their football team. Two good football programs. I mean, Fordham's challenged themselves with Nebraska and Florida Atlantic in two of their first three games, and had Monmouth, who's a playoff team, the last couple of games. So they played some stout competition. They challenge themselves like we challenge us here at Stony Brook. And we've had some good contests over the last few years.
Finally, the lone CA matchup on Saturday features Elon hosting William and Mary. The Tribe defense has given up just 10 points while recording back-to-back wins, and that unit has gotten the attention of Phoenix head coach Tony Trisciani.
They're playing really well on defense right now. You know, they're creating takeaways defensively. They're running the ball well on offense and protecting it with only one turnover on the season, and they're blocking kicks on special teams. So, you know, that's a pretty good recipe that you can win with.
However, the William & Mary defense will be challenged by a dangerous Elon offense that is led by one of the CA's most talented and experienced quarterbacks in Davis Cheek. Tribe head coach Mike London knows how good the veteran signal caller is.
Davis is he's a veteran. I mean, the guy can throw, he can run. You know, he's been in their system for a while. He's a leader.
Here's a look at the Week 4 schedule around CA football.
Week 3 saw another FBS victory for the Big Sky after Northern Arizona defeated Arizona for the first time since 1932 and the first time ever in Tucson. Defense was key as the Lumberjacks held the Pac-12 opponent to just 106 yards on the ground. Following NAU's upset of Arizona and Montana's win at Washington earlier this season, the Big Sky has now defeated 2 Power 5 teams in the same year for the first time ever. Of note, Eastern Washington's Eric Berrier passed for 487 of his career-high 542 passing yards in the first half of last Saturday's 62-56 win over Western Illinois, which broke the FCS record for most passing yards in a single half. Again, the Big Sky had 5 teams ranked in the top 15 of both national polls this past week. Once again, Montana led the way for the league as they were ranked 4th overall. Now back to last week's Power 5 victory. Lumberjack linebacker Harrison B. Miller earned his first Player of the Week honor as he was instrumental in the upset. I spoke with him about the significance of the honor and the win. Let's take a look. All right, so Harrison, you joined this team as a walk-on 3 years ago. What does it mean to earn this honor and in a victory against a Power 5 opponent?
No, it means a lot. Just kind of shows me that all my hard work and perseverance has paid off. So it's just a good feeling.
You talk about hard work and perseverance. What has that looked like for you in the past 3 years?
Just a lot of doing the right things, you know, doing everything that the coaches asked me to do, doing all the little things right. That's the biggest thing that I pride myself on. And I think that's got me to where I am today, is just doing the little things right and doing all the extra things that I needed to do to get here.
Now, what were some of those things that you were focused on heading into this game?
One thing we preached on this week was energy and effort, and then just playing within our scheme, not doing anything, you know, different and trying to be a hero. Just play within our scheme, and that's pretty much what we did all night.
You can find Harrison's full interview on Big Sky social media. And with today marking the start of the conference season, here's a rundown of all the Week 4 action. Undefeated UC Davis travels to defending Big Sky champ Weber State today, marking the ranked conference matchup of the year. Be sure to tune into all the action on ESPN+. And that's all for the Big Sky. Be sure to follow at Big Sky FB for around-the-clock coverage.
FCS All-In rolls on here with our national correspondent segment. We've got Craig Haley from Stats Perform, Sam Herder from Hero Sports. I'm Bryson Lester for FCS All-In. Thanks for being with us today. We've got a lot of FCS football going on, another busy Saturday, but let's go back to last weekend real quick. Sam, it's been a great year for FCS over FBS upsets. We saw some more this past weekend, but it's just really exciting to see these games really at the forefront of everybody's mindset. Do you feel like this is kind of a sign of things to come, of the level of play we'll see in the FCS this season?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's been a couple of things we can probably point at that has helped these upsets. I think the FCS playing in the spring has helped a little bit, just with getting that game action in, and probably being able to get a quicker start on the season. Then also too, I think just having that extra year of eligibility for just college in general. I think you see a lot of 6-year seniors for FCS teams, and also there's no 63 scholarship limit either right now in the FCS, and so the FCS has more scholarships, and so maybe the depth is better in the FCS compared to past years where it's 85 scholarships versus 63. And so I think that that will play out this year, where there's just a ton of 6-year seniors in the FCS. There's a lot of depth in the FCS, and I think once we get into conference versus conference play, you're going to see a lot of really good teams in the FCS this year, just because of those added scholarships and extra years.
So, Craig, we've seen some movement the last couple of weeks with conference realignment, which unfortunately with that can kill some long storied rivalries. When you look at the upcoming weekend, we've got some of those rivalries on deck, so they're top of mind here. As these conferences realign, how important is it for these schools and athletic directors to keep these long storied rivalries going?
Yeah, you're right, Bryce. I mean, some of the rivalries do kind of die off. You don't keep all your former conference opponents. But today, I mean, North Carolina A&T is playing North Carolina Central, and they were in the MEAC together. Jacksonville State, UT Martin from the OVC, and they were conference foes. The big one, Sam Houston and Central Arkansas, it's an AQ7 game, but then they're going to go separate ways next year. I think, you want to see that continue. Hopefully it will. I am seeing after these realignments happen that soon after you see these announcements that, hey, we're keeping this series with so-and-so or another school. And I think that's important. I mean, you want fans and alumni to be able to connect to schools that they're passionate about playing and beating, and proximity helps, which you're going to have in former conference rivals. So it is important to keep some of these matchups and the really, big rivalries like in North Carolina Central A&T one is going to last, and it's good to see.
Hopefully you can see administrations across the country really put an emphasis on those as conferences continue to kind of thrown in the mixer there. Sam, when we look at the first couple weeks here of the season, we've seen some really impressive individual performances. Who are some of the guys so far individually that have really stood out to you so far this year?
Yeah, there's been a lot of really good quarterback play in the FCS this year. I mean, Cole Kelly and Eric Berrier, they were 1 and 2 in the Walter Payton Award voting in the spring, but they were both just absolutely lighting it up and just putting up ridiculous numbers. And so those two jump right to mind. I think James Masson, wide receiver Antoine Wells Jr., is having a breakout season. He was already, had breakout performances in the spring playoffs, but he's really coming into his own. Now, Pierre Strong Jr., South Dakota State running back, has really caught my eye too. I think now that he's fully healthy, he's certainly proven that he is the best running back in the FCS. And then defensively, Ryan Greenhagen from Fordham is, it started out with Nebraska, but all these other weeks too, he's just again racking up a ridiculous amount of tackles. And so those are just some guys that are having really good starts to their seasons.
Good stuff. A lot of really talented players in the FCS this year. Craig, it seems like, the Ivy League got going last weekend. Seems to be in FCS circles, there's a little bit of debate and talk of whether the Ivy League should be included in the national rankings. Just kind of wanted to pick your brain there. Where do you stand on that, and what do you feel the answer is?
Oh, great question. I've been around the Ivy League for a long time, and I can tell you, and most people know this, that it's everybody but the school presidents want to see football in the playoffs. The players, the coaches, the people involved in football, they want the champion to go to the playoffs. It's the presidents that are holding back and not allowing it to happen. I think the Ivy schools, when you look at the rankings, the stats reform top 25, the rankings reflect 128 schools. It's not just the schools in the playoffs. That would be an incomplete picture if you didn't include FCS programs that are playing FCS games. So I don't think we should hold it against, Ivy's teams because of an archaic rule of the president. So I think it's a great debate, but I think, they should be involved in the top 25 rankings.
Absolutely. And always good to talk those kind of things out, because it's one of those things you see on social media. People are always going back and forth on. Sam, one of my favorite things to read every week is your bracketology articles. You take a look at the FCS bracket, break down what could potentially look like coming up at the end of the season. As you put the one together this week, what was really on the top of mind for you, and what's really standing out as you put those mock brackets together right now?
Yeah, and obviously it's very fluid and changes most weeks, and just kind of looks at how every week's results kind of impacts the playoff picture, whether it's, James Madison getting a big ranked win against Weber State, maybe that bumps them up from the 3 seed to the 2 seed, and those kind of things. And so, it's probably not necessary to overreact to a lot of it right now from a fan's perspective, because at this point it's more of just for fun, just to kind of see how things shake out. But early on, the thing that kind of sticks out to me is, the Valley. I have 6 teams from the Valley, the Missouri Valley Football Conference, in right now. Whether that actually happens, I don't know, but it's hard to leave any of those 6 teams out right now, just with, whether they might be 2-1 in the non-conference or 3-0 in the non-conference, and some of them have ranked wins or FBS wins. And then the Big Sky 2, I have 5 teams in. Again, just with overall records, a handful of FBS wins, just teams that I think are going to go on to have good seasons in the Big Sky slate. And so, for a 2014 bracket, will there be 11 total teams in from the Big Sky and the Valley? I don't know, but right now it's hard to leave any of those 11 teams out as we sit right now.
Nothing ignites debate in the comments section more than bracketology articles, it seems like. So you love to see that. Craig, real quick here, Sam Houston, defending national champions, going against Central Arkansas this week. Are the Bearcats on upset alert here? This is a big game.
I like that term, upset alert. That nothing gets you fired up when you think of that. I mean, Sam Houston's the champ. I mean, a 13-game winning streak, the longest in the FCS. But this is dangerous because, they're only 2-5 when they played at Central Arkansas, and that includes the last 2 times there under Casey Keeler. But they've had an off week to prepare. That kind of heals up some wounds. I think that helps them. And the other thing is, being the champ, you're a little bit mentally exhausted at times because everybody's gunning for you week to week. And in this case, it's a rival. I feel Sam Houston's going to pull it out. I think they have to get pressure on Braylon Smith, the Central Arkansas quarterback, maybe force some interceptions. Central Arkansas has to get the crowd going, make them a factor, and they probably will at times. I think they're going to, go up and down the field. I think it's a great matchup. But yes, the Bearcats are on upset alert this week.
Good stuff. We mentioned it off the top. Big weekend of games, big Saturday we've got going on today. Transitioning into conference play a little bit here. Sam, we'll just start with you. What matchups this weekend have your eye?
Yeah, and we just touched on it too, but Sam Houston playing Central Arkansas is a big game, especially big picture-wise when it comes to arguments to have the number 1 or number 2 seed. James Madison, Montana, South Dakota State, teams like that, they're going to have a huge edge on Sam Houston as far as strength of schedule. You also have some FBS wins in there for some of those teams. James Madison has the Weber State win on its resume. And for Sam Houston, they're only playing 10 games. They don't play an FBS opponent. Their strength of schedule won't be that strong. And so this game is going to be big because this can be the Bearcats statement game. You know, if they go on the road and win, it's a good win. But if they only win by 3 and don't look good doing it, you know, maybe that takes some steam off of them as far as, you know, being a top, 2, 3, 4, 5 team. If they go there and dominate, I think that can go a long ways. UC Davis going to Weber State is a big one, a ranked game. Weber State, who has high hopes this season, is in danger of falling to 1-3. Then UC Davis, I think, is looking really strong. And then another one, too, that I think is interesting is South Dakota going to Missouri State. The Bears of Missouri State, they're getting a lot of top 25 love, and deservedly so, obviously. But South Dakota, I think, is right on that fringe. They're 2-1. They nearly beat Kansas, and then they hammered Northern Arizona. And NAU just recently beat Arizona, so that kind of makes us go, okay, is South Dakota that good that they beat Northern Arizona that handedly? And so I think those are 3 games that I'll especially be keeping my eye on.
Some good contests there. Craig, same to you. What games have your eye today?
Yeah, Sam touched on some great ones. I would add Monmouth hosting Holy Cross. I mean, those are 2 preseason league favorites. That should be fun. Davidson hosting San Diego. I mean, San Diego has been the long-time power in the Pioneer League, and Davidson stopped their 39-game league winning streak in the spring. So I think that's fascinating. We've seen all these FBS upsets for FCS teams. I mean, this week's sort of CAA week. I mean, there's 5 teams from CAA playing FBS. I look at Villanova going to Penn State's a premier, kind of marquee game. That hasn't happened in 70 years, even though they're in the same state. So there's plenty out there, Bryson, and it should be another fun weekend.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. As always, before we go, I want to give you a second here to plug what you've been working on. Sam, what can FCS fans be on the lookout for from you?
Yeah, we'll continue doing my weekly bracketology, and also we'll publish my top 25 ballot as well. And then just, the obvious stuff too, like predictions and all that. And then just seeing what storylines pop up after this weekend of upcoming games. And if there's, anything that I want to tackle based off the results, then, we'll just go from there.
And Craig, same to you. What have you been working on out there?
Sure. I mean, week to week, it's hard to escape doing like big kind of game stories, the preview in the week ahead. And, I love come Monday. It just seems like you put out the top 25 poll and people just are checking it out to see where their team stands and nitpick all the time. So I love that about FCS week. So that, I look forward to Mondays because of that as well.
Great stuff. Craig Haley and Sam Herder, 2 of the absolute best in the business. We appreciate you stopping in here on FCS All-In. We're going to keep the show rolling. Signing off here for FCS All-In, I'm Bryson Lester.
It's time for our weekly look around the Southern Conference for Week 4 of FCS football action. With last week's victory over Western Carolina in the lone Southern Conference battle, Samford is atop the league with a 1-0 mark to begin the fall 2021 campaign. Bulldogs are 2-1 overall, placing them alongside Furman and VMI, who share that record. ETSU is the only remaining unbeaten among Southern Conference squads, all 3 of their games, of course, being played outside of league action. The SoCon boasts 2 teams in national polls this week, ETSU ranked at 15th and 17th respectively, and Chattanooga just inside the top 25 at 23rd in one poll while receiving votes in another. Samford and Furman now join them in that regard, receiving votes in at least one of the 2 national FCS polls. Samford's win over Western Carolina was secured in come-from-behind fashion. That after the Bulldogs had originally sprinted out to a 21-3 lead. The Catamounts scored 28 consecutive points in the middle portion of the game to claim a 31-21 advantage in the third quarter. However, the final 3 touchdowns all belonged to the Bulldogs as Samford held on for a 42-37 win. Chattanooga gave the Kentucky Wildcats a scare on the road in Lexington, coming within a single possession of becoming the latest FCS team to take down an FBS foe. However, when the dust settled in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, it was the Wildcats 28, the Mocs 23. Furman also played up on Saturday, traveling to Raleigh to take on the ACC's NC State Wolfpack. And though the Paladins put a score on the board, they would eventually fall by a final of 45-7 in Raleigh. On a day when redshirt freshman quarterback Colin Ironside threw for 230 yards and a pair of touchdowns, both of them to wide receiver Jacob Harris, VMI improved to 2-1 on the season by picking up a 10-point victory over Cornell, the final 31-21. ETSU had its way with Delaware State to stay perfect on the year. Quay Holmes putting together a 157-yard, 2-touchdown effort alongside the defensive work of Jalen Porter, who recorded 4 sacks on the day in what would eventually shake out as a 38-6 victory for the Bucks. Despite a solid day from fifth-year linebacker Joe Beckett, who led the Terriers with 11 tackles, Wofford came up short against 24th-ranked Kennesaw State, the final in Spartanburg, 31-10. And an in-state battle with the North Greenville Crusaders would become the Citadel's first win on the year. Fans in Charleston did not have to wait long to see Jalen Adams connect with Raleigh Webb for a touchdown just a few minutes into the contest. It would be the first of more than one touchdown for each of those two on the day. Nathan Storch added a pair of touchdowns as well, and the Citadel took care of North Greenville 45-13. This week's Saturday slate begins with Wofford heading to VMI. That's the Next Star Ingalls SoCon game of the week, scheduled for a 1:30 p.m. kick. Mercer is on the road at Furman in a conference showdown, which kicks off at 2 p.m. ETSU will travel to Birmingham to take on Samford at 3. And Western Carolina is on the road out of conference, taking on Gardner-Webb with a 6 p.m. kick scheduled. That's your glance at the SoCon for Week 4 of the FCS season.
Welcome to the Missouri Valley Football Conference Extra Point. League play kicks off this week as the Valley takes their FCS best 17-2 record against FCS opponents in the conference openers. Indiana State with an unforgettable finish to their non-conference campaign. Down 4 to Eastern Kentucky with 2 seconds remaining, Curtis Wilderman found Faison McClure at the goal line for an acrobatic game-winning touchdown. The Cornell grad transfer was a huge part of the Sycamores' 23-21 win, finishing with a career-high 6 catches for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. Indiana State takes a 2-1 record into their matchup with second-ranked South Dakota State. North Dakota has to wait a week to open their Valley slate, but rides a 12-game home win streak. In fact, the Fighting Hawks haven't dropped a home opener since, get this, 1986. 35 wins in a row. UND blanked Drake 38-0 behind 3 interceptions by the defense, which held the Bulldogs to just 163 yards of total offense. Luke Skokna and Isaiah Smith powered the ground game, combining for 248 yards, the first 100-yard rushing games of their careers. Nowhere is the strength of the Valley more evident than the Massey ratings, a metric that factors in a team's wins and losses relative to the schedule they face. Every league team is ranked in the top 36, with 4 Valley teams in the top 6, 8 in the top 14, and 10 in the top 22. This weekend's Valley slate includes 4 matchups, highlighted by new all-time winningest Illinois State head football coach Brock Spack and his Redbirds at Southern Illinois. All games streaming on ESPN 3 or Plus.
This is Kendra Watkins with the ASUN Conference, and we are back. Yes, back. FCS All-In, and we're all in. Week 4 of game action and our very first AQ7 matchup. Week 4 of ASUN Conference football features the first ASUN WAC AQ7 battle of the 2021 season, as number 24 Central Arkansas hosts defending FCS champion number 1 Sam Houston. The Bears earned their first win of the season last Saturday in a 45-23 triumph over Arkansas Pine Bluff. After an idle weekend, the 2-0 Bearcats return to action, looking for an edge in an all-time series versus UCA, which currently sits at 7 wins apiece. Number 9, Jacksonville State hosts UT Martin after edging out in-state rival North Alabama 27-24. The Gamecocks rank second in the nation with 2 defensive touchdowns scored this season, and they rank 7th nationally with 4 fumble recoveries.
Well, I mean, I think, just opportunistic. I mean, I think when you play with great effort and you get there and you put your head on the ball, you kind of cause some turnovers. And, I think that's what happened. It's a big turning point in the game. They go up 2 scores. We get there, we put their head on the ball, and, pick up and run it all the way back, 104-yard touchdown. And, J-Rocks was just, dropping out and getting the right spot, and he just throws it to him. So, we're at the plus with the giveaway takeaway. And I go back to it all the time as the season moves on, but also at the end of the season, you got to be in the plus category with the giveaway takeaway. And
it's really just a standard on our defense. Even if y'all watch us at practice, we trying to punch the ball out, catch interceptions. Coach might say stay down, but we going up to get that ball. If it's in the air or it's on the ground, even if it's behind the line of scrimmage and we think it's a fumble, we're going to go pick it up and try to run it into the end zone. It's just a standard. We want the ball.
This weekend marks the 43rd meeting between JSU and UT Martin. The Gamecocks have been dominant, winning 10 of their last 11 meetings with the Skyhawks. Eastern Kentucky dropped their home opener to Indiana State on the final play of last Saturday night's contest after EKU took its first lead of the game with 49 seconds remaining. Parker McKinney went 23 of 38 through the air against the Sycamores, while Dakota Allen finished with 4 catches for a team-high 66 yards. Kyle Bailey led the defense with 7 stops. The Colonels match up against Austin Peay on the road in a 2 p.m. Central Standard Time kickoff.
Well, we welcome them to the now to the ASUN next year, so glad they made that decision. I think it's a great decision, obviously for them, but being a former player there, but it's I think adds great value to our conference. But yeah, they've got a quarterback that is dangerous both on his feet and in the air. I'm sure half of their players on their team had won the conference championship in 2019 and went into the quarterfinals in the FCS playoffs. So they expect to win. We expect to win. So it should be a great 60-minute matchup again.
This has been Kendra Watkins with another installment of FCS All-In. We'll see you guys next week.
Next up is the OVC as we take a look at UT Martin head coach Jason Simpson.
UT Martin head coach Jason Simpson is one of just 5 head coaches in OVC history to coach at the same school for 15 or more years. This season, he moved into the league's top 5 for all-time victories. How did he go about building the UT Martin program into a consistent winner?
When you've been doing it 16 years, you know what problems you're going to face on a daily basis. When you come to on the office on, July 17th, you've already experienced it before. So there is some merit to being in a place and knowing what you're dealing with, whether it be good or bad. You know what your day consists of. I still, running the offense and being around these players and still drawing up X's and O's, that keeps you fresh. And, still as a head coach, it's a lot harder being the coordinator on Saturday than it is being the head coach, in my opinion. And I've never been a head coach, just sit over there and decided whether or not to, go for it on 4th down. I've always called the plays. So that's still a challenge. I still enjoy it, and it keeps me, interactive with the kids. And I won't say it keeps me young. You see my gray in my hair, but I still enjoy it.
When he got the job in 2006, did Simpson think he would still be coaching the Skyhawks 16 years later?
I think I did. I think, I trusted that this was God's plan for me. This was the platform to where he wanted me and my family to be. And so it's going by fast. I can't believe it's year 16. And, this is my home. This is where I was able to raise my 3 children. I love this community. I love what this community does for our players and for our program. What we might not have from a resource standpoint, we have from an emotional, an emotional connection that we have with our community of different things that they do for our program or they do for our players. And I've really enjoyed, being a part of that for the last 16 years. And I would tell you that that the success that we've had is because of our location. Some people may use that against us in our recruiting. We were laughing about that the other day, to where Walmart is the Martin Mall, and our kids rag on each other about it, but they don't let anybody else rag on them about it. And they take a lot of pride with that, and it gives them a chip on their shoulder. And, we've got kids from Miami, Florida, St. Louis and small towns in between. And so when they come here to Martin for the next 4 or 5 years of their life, they can live in a safe, village type environment, and we're able to really be part of their lives and see them develop and see them grow. And that's just been a blessing to be a part of that for the last 16 years.
Simpson and his team also take pride in giving back and developing relationships within the Martin community.
It starts in camp, and you'll see, you'll see different community members for whether we're in camp for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, provide a fourth meal for our players, and whether it be a family of family of 4 or a couple families get together, or one of our local churches or businesses, and they provide another meal for our players. And to see the interaction, and they get to know our players on a first name basis, and then that carries over into a part-time job in the summer, or a relationship that carries over even after they graduate, and different things that I don't even know about. That's very satisfying to see those type of relationships.
Both on and off the field, Simpson has made the right moves in building long-lasting success for the UT Martin football program.
Hi, I'm Mark Bryant in the Big South Network studio for week 4 of the football season. Let's review some records set in the Big South last week before we jump into this week's action. In Hampton's 48-32 win over Howard last week, Pirates quarterback Jet Duffy connected with Hezekiah Grimsley on this 95-yard pass play for a touchdown, the longest in Big South history. The old record of 92 yards was set by Monmouth in 2019. Hampton is idle this week after its 5th straight win over the Bison. Campbell snapped its 10-game losing streak with a record-setting 72-0 win over Presbyterian last Saturday. The 72-point margin of victory set a league record, as did quarterback Wiley Hartley's 6 touchdown passes on the evening. Making his first career start, Hartley was 22 of 30 passing for 342 yards. The Camels' defense collected a Big South record 10 takeaways, notching 7 interceptions and 3 fumble recoveries against the Blue Hose, including a pick 6. Monmouth won its 11th consecutive Big South contest last week as the Hawks downed Charleston Southern 41-14 behind 3 touchdown runs from Jawan Fari. The Hawks are 1-0 in Big South games for the 5th straight year. Monmouth plays its home opener this afternoon against Holy Cross. Now for the rest of today's schedule, Robert Morris is playing its first home game since 2019 as the Colonials entertain Howard in their home opener this afternoon. Howard will be the second of 3 consecutive first-time opponents for Robert Morris. North Alabama suffered a 3-point loss to nationally ranked Jacksonville State last week and travels to Nicholls today looking to snap its 7-game losing streak. The Lions are facing Nicholls for the first time since 1976 and have won 3 of the 4 all-time meetings. Charleston Southern looks to bounce back after last week's Big South opening loss to Monmouth as the Bucks travel to East Carolina tonight. It will be the first of 2 FBS opponents for the Buccaneers this season. Gardner-Webb is seeking its 2nd straight win this week as the Runnin' Bulldogs host Western Carolina. Gardner-Webb won the last meeting in 2019 and has won 3 times over the Catamounts in the series history. Last Saturday, the Runnin' Bulldogs posted a 56-0 home opening win over Lincoln for their first shutout since 2016. North Carolina A&T is back in action following its bye week, and the Aggies are playing their home opener this evening against local rival North Carolina Central. A&T has won the last 3 matchups and has outscored NC Central in the last 2 games by a 99-0 margin. There's your snapshot of the Big South schedule for Week 4. Enjoy the games and be sure to follow Big South Football on ESPN Plus and on social media at Big South Sports.
I'm Eric Danner for the WAC report for FCS All-In. Week 3 of WAC football action featured some spectacular plays, starting with the X-Man at Stephen F. Austin. The Lumberjacks hosting Mississippi Valley State, and it was a big game for SFA wide receiver Xavier Gibson. First quarter, Trey Self goes up top to Gibson for 48 yards. SFA's first possession winds up in the end zone. They lead 7-0. Second quarter, Self to Gibson again. This is a 78-yard scoring play. Gibson only had 3 catches on the day, but 2 of them go for touchdowns. Gibson is named Ticket Smarter Offensive Player of the Week. Then it's our WAC top play of the week. Gibson on the punt return, reversing field, finds a convoy of blockers, goes 70 yards for his 3rd touchdown of the half. Stephen F. Austin leads 38-13 at the break. They roll to a 58-13 victory. In Abilene Christian hosting Texas Permian Basin. Second quarter, defensive end Jordan Pop gets the interception and rumbles into the end zone. Wildcats lead 24-3. They go on to win 34-9. Pop is named WAC Ticket Smarter Defensive Player of the Week. On to Greeley, Colorado, where Lamar made their first ever trip to the Centennial State, taking on Northern Colorado. No score in the second quarter when Cardinals running back Marcellus Johnson goes 67 yards to the house, as the kids say. This was a very low-scoring contest, under 10 seconds to go. Bailey Giffen connecting on the 26-yard field goal. Giffen is named Ticket Smarter Special Teams Player of the Week. We go to overtime, where Chaz Ward goes 10 yards for the touchdown. Last chance for UNC. Lamar's Jamin Johnson gets the sack. Lamar wins 17-10. Our featured game of the week was future WAC member Southern Utah making the trip to Arlington to take on Tarleton. This was truly the game of the week. Texans defensive back Devin Hafford gets the pick 6 in the second quarter. Hafford had 2 interceptions on the day. We were tied at 28 at the half. Fourth quarter, Daniel Wright scampers down the sideline to give Tarleton a 35-34 lead, but the Thunderbirds come down and score with under 2 minutes to go. Southern Utah winning a barn burner 40-35. Final game of the week, Dixie State in Northern California taking on 12th ranked UC Davis. Second quarter, Taylor Alvarez scoring on the short touchdown pass. Trailblazers down 15-13, but the Aggies control it after that, winning 60-27. Dixie State will be on a bye this week. Our featured game of the week is Abilene Christian traveling to Lamar. This will be the 21st ever meeting between the two schools, and the Cardinals have won the last 6 previous matchups. In fact, the Wildcats haven't beaten Lamar since 1970. ACU quarterback Stone Earl leads the WAC with 8 touchdown passes on the season. Wildcats wide receiver Kobe Clark is tops in the WAC in touchdown catches with 4. Lamar rushed for more than 200 yards in their win over Ed McCaffrey and the Northern Colorado Bears. The Cardinals also held UNC to just 236 yards of offense. Lamar and Abilene Christian play Saturday on ESPN+. The two teams will play twice this season, so this matchup does not count as a conference game. Stephen F. Austin hosts Lincoln University from Oakland, California, and Tarleton is back in Stephenville. The Texans host New Mexico Highlands. All those games start at 6 Central on ESPN+. After a bye week, number 1 ranked Sam Houston will be back in action this week. The Bearcats traveling to Central Arkansas. This will be the first AQ7 matchup. The WAC and Atlantic Sun conferences have formed a scheduling alliance that allows the 7 eligible schools from each conference to be eligible for an automatic qualification to the NCAA FCS playoffs. The Bearcats and Bears play at 4 p.m. Central on ESPN+. For FCS All-In, I'm Eric Danner.
Conference play is finally set to begin this weekend in the Southland Conference, but before we look ahead to that, let's take a look at last week's Southland Conference Football Players of the Week, presented by Geico. After helping lead their teams to victories in Week 3 of the season, 2 McNeese Cowboys take home awards, while the other goes to a familiar UIW Cardinal. For the second time in his career and the first time this season, UIW's Cameron Ward is named the Offensive Player of the Week. Propelling his team to the program's first win over an FBS opponent, the sophomore quarterback threw for a season-high 376 yards and 4 touchdowns in the 42-34 victory over Texas State. He also completed 66% of his passes, his best performance since last spring's win at Lamar. Over the last 7 games dating back to last spring, Ward is averaging 364 pass yards per game, with 27 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions. Also making history for his university, Mason Pierce from McNeese is this week's Special Teams Player of the Week. Looking for their first win of the season, the sophomore wide receiver helped the Cowboys start their game against Southern off with a bang, taking the opening kickoff 100 yards to the house. The score marked the first game-opening kickoff return for a touchdown in McNeese program history, and honestly could have proved to be the difference in the game, as the Cowboys ultimately won 31-24. And Pierce's teammate Corian Harris is this week's Defensive Player of the Week after his contributions in the win over the Jaguars. The senior defensive back was all over the place for McNeese, tallying 6 tackles, 2 pass breakups, a sack, a quarterback hit, and a fumble recovery in the Cowboys' first victory of the season. A big congratulations to Cameron Ward, Mason Pierce, and Corian Harris, our Player of the Week award winners. Now let's take a closer look into UIW's win over Texas State. Not only did the 42-34 victory over the Bobcats mark the first FBS win in program history for the Cardinals, but it also marked the first Southland Conference FBS win of the season. In the victory, UIW put up 455 yards of total offense, 5 yards shy of Texas State's 460 yards, with 376 yards coming from Jerry Rice Award winner Cameron Ward through the air. Averaging 41.3 points per game after 3 games this season, the 42 points was the highest scoring output for the Cardinals thus far. Looking at the upcoming schedule for this weekend, UIW returns home for the first Southland Conference matchup of the season. The Cardinals host McNeese at 11 a.m. on ESPN+, with both teams coming off of big wins last weekend, looking to keep their individual streaks alive. The other Southland team taking the field on Saturday is Nicholls, who was on a bye last week. The Colonels will finally open up their season at home as they welcome North Alabama to Thibodaux at 3 p.m. on ESPN+. Here's a look at the Southland slate for Saturday. Best of luck to our 3 teams taking the field this weekend.
Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook here, bringing you our Week 2 Ivy League football preview. This week, we kick things off very early on Friday night up in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the iconic Harvard Stadium, where the Crimson play host to the Brown Bears, in which should be an outstanding display of offensive talent with the quarterback E.J. Perry of Brown, that passing game, and a dual-headed rushing attack of Harvard with Aaron Champlin and Aiden Bourget. Then we kick off early on Saturday afternoon at noon Eastern up in New Haven, where the Big Red of Cornell and the Yale Bulldogs, both coming off close losses, look to get their first win of the season. Georgetown looks for their revenge against an Ivy League opponent as they face Columbia, but they better hope it doesn't come down to a field goal, as the Lions have a great one in Alex Falcons, who was named Ivy League Special Teams Player of the Week last week. Princeton hosts Stetson after blanking Lehigh last week, led by their quarterback Cole Smith, the Ivy League Offensive Player of the Week. The Tigers will be looking to post back-to-back shutouts for the first time since 1965. We have a really good matchup this week up in Hanover as Dartmouth welcomes in Sacred Heart. The Big Green had 2 Ivy League Players of the Week, rookie wide receiver Paxton Scott and defensive player Jalen Mackey. And last but certainly not least, the Penn Quakers continue their barnstorming tour around the state of Pennsylvania. This time they travel up to Lafayette to take on the Leopards. Penn looked dominant last weekend against Bucknell and hopes for a repeat performance from quarterback John Quinelli, who was on fire last weekend. So that's it for this edition of our Week 2 Ivy League football preview. Be sure to keep it locked here on ESPN Plus for more Ivy League football content, and follow and subscribe to all 8 Ivy League schools on their social media feeds.
Norfolk State set program records for both total offense and points in a single game on Saturday, as the Spartans picked up the first win of the Dawson Odoms era with a 63-26 defeat of Elizabeth City State at Dick Price Stadium. MEAC preseason Offensive Player of the Year Jawan Carter tied a program Division I record with 5 touchdown passes, throwing for 353 yards. North Carolina Central overcame a 10-point deficit and got 2 rushing touchdowns from Latrell Collier to defeat Winston-Salem State 20-13 in the Eagles' home opener. Quentin Williams threw for a career-high 357 yards and 3 touchdowns, but Howard fell 48-32 to Hampton in the inaugural Truth in Service Classic. And Corey Fields threw for 352 yards and 4 touchdowns in South Carolina State's 43-35 loss at New Mexico State. Elsewhere on the gridiron, Delaware State fell 38-6 to East Tennessee State, and Morgan State fell 21-7 to Sacred Heart. 4 MEAC programs will be in action this weekend, with Delaware State the lone team playing at home. Howard will travel to face Robert Morris at a 12 noon kickoff on ESPN+, as will Norfolk State when it hits the road to face St. Francis live on NEC Front Row. The Hornets will return to Alumni Stadium for a 2 p.m. tilt against Merrimack College on the MEAC Digital Network on ESPN+, and North Carolina Central will head to Greensboro to take on rival North Carolina A&T State at 6 p.m. That game will also be on ESPN+. Morgan State and South Carolina State both have byes this week. For more information on MEAC football and the conference's other 15 sponsored sports, please visit our website at meacsports.com. You can also follow the MEAC on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at MEAC Sports, and subscribe to the MEAC Digital Network on YouTube.
Let's take a look at action from this past weekend in the Pioneer League and a look ahead to today's games.
The Pioneer Football League wrapped up a tough week of non-conference action last Saturday, with Butler's big win highlighting the performances. Butler used a 35-point second quarter and 602 yards of offense to upend Taylor 77-24. The 77 points set a program record for the Bulldogs. Quarterback Brett Bruschka completed 15 of 20 passes for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game, while Nick Orlando and Kayvon Samuels each ran for a pair of scores. Orlando, who earned Pioneer Football League Offensive Player of the Week, was responsible for 3 touchdowns overall, adding a 43-yard passing touchdown to his ground game. During the game, he was only in for 8 plays of action, with 5 of those resulting in a first down or a touchdown. Nick Cagnetto of Drake earned Defensive Player of the Week honors after forcing a pair of turnovers by nationally ranked North Dakota. Both turnovers came at the Drake 1-yard line, first a forced fumble and then an interception, halting drives deep in Bulldogs territory. Dwayne Menders of Marist and Andrew Foster of Morehead State split Special Teams Player of the Week honors this week. Menders returned a punt 82 yards for a touchdown in Marist last Saturday, marking the second longest return in the FCS this season. This also marked Marist's first punt return touchdown since 2014. Foster averaged 47.9 yards on his 7 punts in Morehead State's loss to nationally ranked Austin Peay, with 3 of his punts going for 50-plus yards. He also notched a 62-yarder in his second punt of the day. His performance didn't stop there, as Foster connected on a 35-yard field goal and went 2 of 2 on PATs. This weekend, the Pioneer Football League begins conference action with 8 teams getting their start. Here's a look at the schedule.
Ralph Ventry here, talking NEC football on FCS All-In. Today, we are going to examine a prime individual performance from around the conference, and then take a look at a top-performing unit. Let's get right to work and check in on the NEC stock market. A punter, you ask? Why not? Punters are people too, and they can have a great effect upon the result of a football game. Let's look at Jordan Slaby, because he's done just that. the St. Francis transfer punter from Division II Alderson Brodus, has been fantastic through the season's first 3 weeks, twice earning NEC Special Teams Player of the Week honors. In the NEC opening win over Wagner, Slaby averaged 48 yards per boot, with 4 of his 7 punts backing Wagner up inside its own 20-yard line. 2 of those 7 punts were downed at the 1.
You know, he can change the game real quick, and he's been a great blessing for us. Again, another guy that's coming into his own. We challenge him week in and week out, but he challenges himself. He comes out here early every day, gets his punts in, and he's a leader.
He's Jordan Slaby. He leads the Northeast Conference in net yards per punt at 42.9, and his stock is all the way up. Stats amazing. 24 points per game allowed? No. 24 points total. The Sacred Heart defense has allowed a total of 24 points through the season's first 3 games. Over 2 non-conference contests, both of them victories, the Pioneers have surrendered only 1 touchdown, keeping their opponent off the scoreboard in 7 of 8 quarters. Defensive coordinator Mike Cook's crew is deep and talented, and it ranks 6th overall on the Division I FCS leaderboard for scoring defense. Sacred Heart opponents are managing only 8 points per game, and stats amazing.
Thanks for going all in with us. You can catch every episode of FCS All-In right back here every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell icon to stay up to date on all the latest FCS All-In content. Until next week, let's be sure to keep the conversation going on social media by using the hashtag FCS All-In.